Hello, welcome to Nakti by j.N.S, and today we are continuing with the Black American series, and we are on part 11. And today we're covering the war on drugs. And the date range for the war on drugs is 1971 through 2008. So we are moving along quite nicely. We're on part 11, so let's start. By the 1960s, America's inner cities were in a decline. So between 1960 and 1980, the number of black people living in low-income neighborhoods had actually doubled, as well as their unemployment rates. The resulting deterioration of the property values in the majority black neighborhoods due to the restrictive covenants, the redlining, the white flight, it hindered financial investment for development. So urban neighborhoods became heavily concentrated with low-income black Americans who had limited access to employment and economic opportunities. These conditions are actually one of the factors leading to the increase in the use of heroin and cocaine, which many speculate and theorize was put into the black American community on purpose by various powers that be. So the heroin epidemic, accelerated by the return of the addicted Vietnam War veterans, was in full effect by the 1970s and heavily impacted black American environments. So by 1969, a Gallup poll concluded that 48% of Americans identify drug use as a serious problem. So before the 1970s, the black American community did not have a history of drug abuse, and it just wasn't something that was propagated in our community that much. I would say that 70s and 80s, everything just took a turn for the worse, and it was systematic, and it was slow at first. And there have even been drug dealers who have came forward and said that they were approached by agents, by feds and various people to go into the black community and sell these drugs. So I have heard stories like that growing up, and many black people have, and even without hearing those stories, black people knew just from the decline of our communities that there was a systematic attack through the use of drugs. So capitalizing on the public sentiment that the drug problem was getting so bad, President Richard Nixon declared a national war on drugs in 1971 and began to crack down on illegal drug abuse. Most notably was the 1973 creation of the Drug Enforcement Agency. This was a government agency that was responsible for reducing and eliminating drug trafficking and use. So in the U.S. decades later, in a 1994 interview, John Ehrlichman, President Nixon's domestic policy chief, provided insight into the political and cultural motivations of the Nixon administration's actions, noting that the war on drugs was intentionally created to target black people. So this is what the domestic policy chief said in 1994 about the Nixon administration and about the war on drugs. So Ronald Reagan then readopted the war on drugs in 1982. And in 1986, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act was passed. And this basically allocated $1.7 billion to the war on drugs and established mandatory minimum sentences for various drug charges. Obviously, the mandatory minimums disproportionately affected black American communities. For example, there was a huge discrepancy in the penalties for possession of crack versus powder cocaine. So crack cocaine versus powder cocaine. Possession of 5 grams of crack cocaine versus 500 grams of powder cocaine both resulted in a 5-year minimum sentence. That should sound crazy to you, just me saying that to you. You should be like, what the hell? But this was a law. And at the time, approximately 80% of crack users were Black Americans because the crack was cheaper. So the use of powder cocaine resulted in less time and a less penalty than the use of crack cocaine, further legitimizing that policy chief's statement about the war on drugs being created to pretty much target Black Americans. So amidst a thriving crack cocaine market and facing strong public pressure for being tough on crime, President Bill Clinton signed the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, known as the Crime Bill, in 1994. The bill funded new police stations and prisons and included a number of provisions for tougher sentences. One of these provisions was the 3 strikes law, which required any person convicted of a violent felony to serve a mandatory life sentence should that offender have 2 other previous convictions, including previous non-violent offenses. As a result, incarceration rates began to rise exponentially in the country. And in 2008, President Barack Obama announced the end of the war on drugs, but made no change to any of the major enforcement policies until 2010, when the passing of the Fair Sentencing Act eliminated discrepancies in mandatory minimum sentences. So this was the war on drugs. So it officially, we've seen a lot of those reversals in 2010. But the damage had been done. Like, there's 3 strikes, you're out rule. We all was familiar with that. We used to see it in movies growing up, in Black American movies. Most notably, I want to say Barbershop was one of them that had the 3 strikes, you're out. A scene about that. And was it Set It Off? It wasn't Set Off. It was some other stuff, that we grew up seeing, where in the movies they would be like, oh, I'm on my 3rd strike, I can't go, And even in real life, like with me personally, I don't know anybody in real life that dealt with 3 strikes. I know people that went to jail, but not, the 3 strikes thing. But it was very serious, and many people got affected. Many Black Americans were affected by this racist law. It's clearly systematic racism. And this was what the war on drugs is another hallmark into what the Black American had to deal with in this country, and the things that we had to fight for, and the things that we're continuing to fight for. The war on drugs affected so many Black Americans. This crack shit was really big in the 1980s and 1990s. And my generation in particular, the millennials, again, you cannot really meet a Black American who does not know a crackhead in their family. They may even had a crackhead parents. So this was very serious and heartbreaking for our community. And I'm going to tell you something else. This was so traumatizing to my generation. Do you know that Black Americans in my generation are the least likely to do crack to this day? They do not tell you that, and they will not put that on the news. Black Americans to this day have the lowest level of crack use now, and literally it traumatizes us to the point where that is the least that is the least drug that we get involved with now. Now everybody's doing the weed, and then people say weed is medicinal and all that stuff. But in my generation, and I'm gonna tell you a story. I went to a school the high school that was diverse. It was probably about 50-50, or maybe even 60-40. I'm not sure, but it was whites and Black Americans, obviously, that went, and a couple of Asians and Hispanics. Now, we all had, some of it, we would just intermingle. So I had some white friends at this time, friends that I was actually really cool with, and I'm not going to give their name. I don't know if I'm not going to say their name, because I think one of them, they still hit me up on Facebook. But it was a group of us. It was 2 whites and me and another Black boy. Well, he's a man now, but back then we were still young kids. I want to say 16, 17. So we would hang out a lot. Like, we would go to, get food together, go to the malls together, drink together. We would sneak and drink, yeah. So, we would sneak and smoke weed or whatever. But we would have a really good freaking time. And we loved going to Applebee's. Applebee's was the shit. The movies. Where else did we go? We just hung out a lot. And so I remember we all went, I want to say, to McDonald's, and it was a white girl and a white boy, right? They said, no lie, out their mouth, hey guys, we want to try. I didn't think they said crack, Cause that don't sound that I don't think they used that word. I think they might have used dope or they used something, but me and the black boy knew it was code for crack. Like we knew, and you should have seen how crazy we was acting. Like, because again, his mom was actually dealt with crack, and then people in my family have dealt with. I mean, a lot of people. So at that time, we were so traumatized by the effects of seeing people go through that. And when these white boy and his white girl straight up say, yo, y'all want to try it? I just want to try it. Because we were 17, so young and dumb. And I remember saying, hell no. And Devontae, the black boy, was like, no. And they couldn't understand why we were so adamant about it. We was just like, no. And we was telling them, I actually gave them a scoop. I said, that shit really messed up communities. I've seen families get torn apart by that. And because I was a very mature person, just like I'm mature now for a 28-year-old, I was mature then for a 16, 17-year-old. And I was like, we seen that shit fuck up so many communities. And it's just something I just don't want no part in. And I'm begging y'all not to try that shit. Do not try that shit. And then it was just like, well, we just trying it one time. It's just gonna be one time. And it was like a fun thing to them. To them, that was fun. Like, that was just like risky teenage adventurous behavior. Where to us, that was like, fuck no. And I remember they said they was going to pick it up from, I don't know how they had really planned to do. That's how white kids are. They will plan to do some shit to get into trouble. They will plan it out, like to a T. Have the time, and I'm telling you, I've been around white people my whole life, and I've seen how these teenagers, kids, I was around them since damn grade school, and I've seen how when they want to do some fuck shit, they map that shit out. It don't be spontaneous, like, oh yeah, we just gonna do. These motherfuckers had the date, the house they was gonna do it at, and we was kind of like, nah, I'm good. So me and Devontae, we was just looking at them like they was out of their fucking mind. And now when they started doing that, because when they started doing that stuff, the white boy, white girl, we was kind of just looking at them like they were crazy. And I remember I honestly started moving slowly out of their circle. Now, from what I understand, the drug use with them got bad. And by that time we were like freshmen in college. I was a freshman in college. I think he dropped out. I think they both went, but they dropped out. But I was a freshman in college, so we had actually kind of went our separate ways. But we would call each other like every couple of months to go to the movies. And when I say that the drug use went from crack to heroin, sure did. It just spiraled. And I did not hear from them for a while. And then I actually started hearing crazy things. The white girl, she actually got pregnant. The baby came out blue. You know what that means? She was doing drugs like she was pregnant with the baby. They took the baby immediately. They don't let the baby go home. So I heard that from the white boy. He told me, that her baby had got taken away from her. So, mind you, we went to a high school where you had to take a test to get into. It was, quote unquote, one of the best schools in Buffalo. It was the school of excellency. It had went down over the years, but the school was a school where you had to take a test to get into. You had to have recommendations. Like you had to be somewhat of intelligent to get your ass in there, of some sort of intelligence. And it was dumb motherfuckers in there that got in, but for the most part, people took education serious, and we liked learning. Basically, they try to put us in an environment where the kids, black, white, wherever you was, you liked to go to school, and you like to learn and get your diploma and pay attention and shit. So, and for the most part, majority of the students did do that, but there were some students that got caught up in stuff, and so I seen these two people. They were of somewhat intelligence, and I just seen them pretty much just get on drugs. After we told them at that McDonald's, if I'm lying, I'm flying. We told them, don't do that shit. We told them, like, okay, yeah, we smoke a little weed in there. We drink a little white Zinfandel, because we would drink white Zinfandel, because the white boy, his mom would have a big ass box container of white Zinfandel. So he would take a water bottle, fill the shit up. Doing them big ass water bottles, fill that shit up, and we would be drinking it together. We would passing it back and forth. Going to the movies or to the mall or some shit, or to our favorite, which was Applebee's, and he would pay. That he was just that type. His mom would always give him enough money for him and me to get to Applebee's. So anyways, he spiraled out of control. He really did, and he think I don't know because we actually kind of went our separate ways even further. But he did tell me. He said I was dealing with this, and he went to therapy, and he didn't say he went to rehab, but he said he stopped. But he had looked like shit. He didn't. I mean, this was a handsome guy, and to see, that crack. That's them 2 years, and to see that addiction like that, and then to see the other white girl, we weren't ever really close. I was only hanging with her because of him, but from what I understand, she had got on that stuff real bad, lost her kid, and I didn't really hear much from her after that. And then with him, I seen him, he messaged me on Facebook, but I don't really know what he's up to. I hope he's off that shit, but so much time have went past. I actually left my hometown for 3 years, went down south, then went to New York City for 2 years. So, I don't really, it's so much time has passed. I don't know what he's up to, but I'm just telling y'all this story so y'all can see how, like, I've literally met, even in college, I would see them white kids just go so hard for drugs, and we would be looking at them like they was fucking crazy. I even had a friend, my white friend went on a trip. She did some type of shrooms and went on a trip and was found, geeked out, on a bench. Like, we were college students, so I've seen them go so hard. They the ones that do that drug shit now, especially that opioid. And in college, everybody did that opioid shit. I forgot that shit they take to make you stay up and all that stuff and get your schoolwork done. So Black Americans, we don't really like hard drugs anymore because of what the crack epidemic did to us. And I'm telling you, just on an anecdotal level, I've seen us advocate very strongly against drug use when people would pressure us. Now, if it's a Molly, I've even seen black people get all crazy about somebody asking them to do a Molly, like hell no, or a Percocet, hell no, I see my mama did, and they really be like, no. But if you talking about crack and heroin, you would really see someone my age be looking at you like you fucking crazy, because it really wreaked havoc on our community, and we still trying to recover from that. Because even people that worked for the CIA and all them, they even said that shit was purposely done, and of course they deny it. But there were people that have came forward that were dead the next day after saying this shit. People that will come and say, yeah, they told me to sell it, they told us to go in. So there's big conspiracy. So yeah, they gonna say that's conspiracy theory. So I have to say allegedly and conspiracy theory. But from what we know, how the Black Americans' history is, yeah, we were always dealing with emotional issues and trauma. We always dealt with trauma. So obviously, people they want to escape. And Americans, they always did the drinking shit. That's what the prohibition period. So that's just broader American stuff. But as far as that attack with that drugs, I do think that was systematic. I do think that was planned. To be honest, and many of us do. We just have to say allegedly, because we don't have any concrete proof besides those couple of officers that came forward, a couple of those agents that came forward, a couple, and even that policy chief that actually outright said that the war on drugs was to target black people. So, this is what we have dealt with. The war on drugs was big. It affected. Y'all have no idea the pain and stuff that I went through with family members from off of that shit. From being on crack. I lost an aunt straight up to meth, recently, and I had plenty of family members that dabbled. Some stopped, but they were older too. There's not nobody my age. We talking about 60s now, 50s and 60s, because that generation was targeted. Because after you got those brilliant minds like Stokely and the Huey P. Newton and all that brilliance, is like you can't keep having that same generation just keep getting more intelligent like that. I mean, we Black Americans are exceedingly intelligent, just like the overall African diaspora. So we're not taking nothing from them either. But what I'm saying is, this is a group of people who have done genius shit, despite having everything stacked up against them. So it's like, how do you systematically get these people off their square, fuck up the communities, break the homes? You do it through crack. And guess I am a product of a broken home due to this shit. So it was traumatizing to me. I have never did any Percocet, Molly, no nothing, nothing of the sorts, nothing even remotely close to crack or anything. You know, I did some drinking, and some weed, and I don't even smoke weed anymore because I don't like the way I like to be in control. I don't judge people who do weed, but I'm just a control freak, and that's just it. So that's the most the Black American will do is a weed. And a lot of people say, why you don't smoke weed? Why you won't fuck with weed? I don't know where to get it from one. And with me, I'm just so paranoid. Like, I feel like I'm gonna be set up. That's just me, because of the shit I know and the things I be doing. I feel like that somebody will be trying to put me in jail for weed usage. That's how paranoid I am. So I don't just fuck with it until this stuff is legal for recreational purposes. That's just my rule. Now, every people, they do whatever they want to do. But I'm not going to be, making, if I was going to use it, I would be making, a nice little butter cake or something with it, or, some cupcake, or they got the oils. Now you can make a butter out of weed now, wine with weed. I don't even know how that works. But there's a THC and then there's like alcohol content in it. I'm not sure. But they got all type. If I was gonna do it, I wouldn't smoke it because I don't like smoking the lungs, regardless of where it comes from. But it would have to be some type of, in the lollipops. They got the weed and the lollipops and all that stuff. But until it's legalized for recreational use, I'm not using shit because I don't want nobody holding nothing over my head and trying to get me fucked up in the game over some shit that's technically still illegal in certain parts of the country. So, Black Americans, continue to have your strong stance against drug use. Again, we got knuckleheads among us that want to do that lean shit, which is idiotic. You can use pretty much Ayurvedic herbs to get that same feeling. You want to feel like you can't feel anything and want to feel numb. You better try some damn, I won't say kava because you're gonna start abusing kava, but ashwagandha and turmeric and things that keep your dopamine levels up. Of course, saffron is good for depression and all that, but just use this nature's herbs to regulate dopamine and serotonin levels in the brain, which prevents depression and sadness and things you want to escape from. So I'm not saying this stuff's gonna get you high, but I'm saying a lot of these herbs decrease inflammation in the brain, modulates chemicals and hormones in the brain, and it can really keep you stabilized. And I have used ashwagandha and all that stuff. These are not drugs. These are just herbs that for one have very powerful benefits throughout the whole body, but they regulate the brain chemistry. So that is a tangent, but that's one, I want to tell the people that's doing that lean stuff, and that's only popular in hip hop culture. So I don't actually know anybody who has done lean in my entire life. I have not met a black person that has done lean. But I'm from the north. It's bigger in the south, but even down south I haven't met anyone. And also they put a lot of that shit on the TV in the music so that they can influence the youth. But a lot of people don't like the taste of that shit, and they think it's weird to be drinking coffee. They just think it's weird to drink cough syrup and mixed with soda. So that's not a Black American thing, believe it or not. Lean is not. So again, continue, Black Americans, to keep your strong stance against drug abuse. No opioid shit, no hair, none of that. Just let it. Don't do none of that like you've been being against it. And we are the number one group in the country that is least likely to do crack now and to do heroin now. And the most likely group is who. So let's continue to be that way. And we learned from what they did during that crack era, and it will never happen again. So stay tuned for part 12, which is going to be mass incarceration. And I'm going to talk to y'all later. Bye.